Well, we're back with Joe from Red Judaism, but hold on a minute. Look who I've got over here. I've also got Al-Fadi, our good friend. Many years, Al-Fadi, we worked together. Oh, goodness sakes, how much have we unpacked this material on the origins of Islam? And now what we're doing is we're looking at the Quran itself. But we're not just looking at the Quran. We brought you on board, Al-Fadi, because we need your expertise. We need your help here, because we're going to be looking at Arabic here. And you are the expert in Arabic. You're doing your doctoral thesis in this very area. And so we need your help, because Joe, who does speak Arabic, he knows Hebrew, he is Jew. Most people will not take him seriously if he starts rattling off on all grammatical structures that are Arabic. So that's why we need your help, because what we're going to look at is the Dome of the Rock. We want to look at the Dome of the Rock. We want to look at those inscriptions. Now, we've already done this with other people. Odon's looked at those inscriptions. So has Mel. So has Thomas. In fact, so have we, haven't we, Al-Fadi? We've looked at those inscriptions before. But
that is true. That is true. Yes, we did. Yeah.
And remember, Al-Fadi, when we looked at them as an attack against Christianity, against the Christian orthodoxy of that age by Abdul Malik, attacking these other Christian views. And because of the soup that was there, what Red Judaism, or I should say Joe from Red Judaism, wants to do, he wants to say, hold on a minute. When you look at the Arabic, when you look at and take out some of the dots and some of the vowels and restructure it, you can see that actually there may be another way to look at these inscriptions. So, Joe, you're going to come up with a whole nother narrative, one that I've not heard before. I know Al-Fadi's not heard this, and I'm sure all those who are listening have not heard this. So over to you, Joe. Good to have you on board. Thanks for coming. I know it's something like 5 o'clock in the morning for you, but nonetheless, you've woken yourself up, thrown that water on your face, and you're willing now to open up this area on the Dome of the Rock. Is there another way to read these inscriptions? Over to you.
Shalom, Jay, and shalom, Al-Fadi. Thank you for having me back again. Yes, well, I'm going to try and present a very different point of view today. And as I know, a lot of what could be said here has already been said by Odon and Inara, with one important exception, which sometimes changes everything. And that's that I'm coming from a Jewish perspective, specifically actually coming from a Judo-Arabic perspective. Now, we've talked about Judo-Arabic before in the show. And I should just correct you, I don't speak Arabic. I know Judo-Arabic, which is really helpful because it helps. If you know Judo-Arabic, you know enough Aramaic, enough Hebrew, enough Arabic, and enough even Greek to be able to sort of follow all sorts of things. So it's a very good way to start. But let me first state that what we all share in common, of course, is that we all agree that the 7th century religion was more Christian than Islamic, as we understand Islam. And that Islam really only began to evolve in the 8th century and didn't begin to reach Spain until the 9th century. But I think I'm the only one who's saying that while some of the authors of Abbasid Islam seem to have been Nazarene adoptionists, the authors of these Umayyad hadiths, which is the origin of the Quran, the authors of the Umayyad hadith were certainly not Nazarene adoptionists. That's my argument. My argument, of course, is that they were more monophysite, in line with Peter von Sivers, is of course the early work of Christoph Luxemburg and Gunther Leuning when they're talking about the Syriac sources, and also even Odon Lafontaine, of course, has talked about that too. So anyway, let's get into this. I'm going to share the screen. So this is the Judaic view on the Dome of the Rock. Now, of course, as we've just heard, you've heard how it seems from a Christian perspective, and now Jay has very graciously invited me to explain what it looks like from a Judaic perspective. So here is a little map showing the location of, well, this is the old city in Jerusalem from above, looking from above. This is the location of the Dome of the Rock here. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is over here. And this is the Western Wall, the Kotel, where all the, you may have seen, there's a little plaza where the Jews pray facing this wall of the Temple Mount. From the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, this is the center of pilgrimage for all the Christians, traditional Christians in history have gone to make pilgrimage to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the tomb of Jesus, the crucifixion site of Jesus, and his tomb is right in the same complex. From this point, it's impossible to see the Dome of the Rock. You can't see the Dome of the Rock from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So if this was to be in the face of the Christians, it's an odd place to have all these inscriptions. The best place would be to have it in a plaza outside of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, to be in the face of the Christians. But it completely overshadows and dominates the Jewish quarter, which is right next to it, and is covering the holiest spot in Judaism. This Dome of the Rock. The rock, of course, is the rock of where Abraham is supposed to have sacrificed Isaac. It's the rock where the Holy of Holies was supposed to be. It's underneath this rock is what we call the Well of Souls in Judaism. The Well of Souls is supposed to be the place where all the souls of humanity are kept before they're born. They come from the Well of Souls down here.
Joe, I'm going to jump in real quickly. Joe, I'm just going to ask a
Yep.
question, because while you're still on this map here, you're saying that the Jewish quarter is there. That's modern day Jewish quarter.
Yes.
What about the Muslim
course.
quarter? There was no Muslim quarter back in 692. So what would that have been at that time? Because that would also play into what you're saying now.
Yes, no, of course there would have been Christians dominating the whole area. But what I'm trying to say is the place of pilgrimage. If you look at the very top of the map, you can't get it, but the stations of the cross go along the top side of the Muslim quarter, and then they come down to the Holy Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They don't go anywhere near the Dome of the Rock. So if you were trying to get at Christians, you should at least do something along the stations of the cross, the route of the pilgrimage, or at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, rather than really on the outskirts of it, on the Temple Mount here, which under canon law was actually off limits. There was a church, a Byzantine church, where Al-Aqsa is. You see Al-Aqsa down here. There was a Byzantine church there, but this rock itself was off limits under canon law. I understand this from an Orthodox bishop from in Israel, from Nazareth, actually. This was off limits to Christians. They were not supposed to go up there because there's no need for them to have any reverence for the rock where the sacrifice of Isaac took place, or where the sacrifices of the temple took place, because the sacrifice of Jesus was much more, it surpasses everything. It makes everything else redundant. Whereas for the Jews, this is the holiest spot. And when Nehemiah ben Hushiel, who we've spoken about many times on this channel before, and done on my channel too, who led this Jewish army in to conquer Jerusalem at the beginning of the 7th century, when his people were clearing the Temple Mount there, they put in the Well of Souls. This is the story. There's no proof of this. This is just the story, the Jewish or the correct Jewish story. They put in there in the Well of Souls. They supposedly had the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets of stone, which they put underneath there, ready to rebuild the temple. That's what they were going to do. And Nehemiah ben Hushiel was going to declare himself the Messiah, no doubt. So this was a really sacred spot it's the most sacred spot for the Jews. And so those inscriptions.
Can I just interrupt one more time? We do know, though, and this would actually support what you're saying, that in 692, when the Dome of the Rock was built, it was a rubbish heap, was it not? Because it was yes, it was a rubbish heap when Nehemiah ben Hushiel's armies came in, because the Christians had no regard for it. It was not from the time when Helen, the mother of Constantine, she did all the excavations in the 4th century. She did all the excavations in the old city, which was previously concreted over. It was Aeola Capitola beforehand, but Helen, the mother of Constantine, came in, and she was a very devout Christian, and she did a lot of excavations there. But the temple, the Dome of the Rock itself, that part was, as you say, a rubbish heap. It was kept as a rubbish heap until Nehemiah ben Hushiel's people came in, and they started to clear at that time. They started to clear it, but that they were evicted in the 610s. Khosrau changed his mind, went against them, kicked the Jews out. They had to go and wall themselves up in Edessa, which is what Sebios is talking about. And that was left until it was reconquered by Omar, who actually there's a reference to him talking to one of the soldiers of Nehemiah ben Hushiel, asking him for specific direction. Exactly where were you clearing the mount? Where were you starting to clear the mount to build the temple? And this Jew, his name is Kabal Akbar, tells him this is where it was. And so Omar starts to try and rebuild it, or starts to clear it. They put up a wooden shrine, according to the reports of various church fathers.
and but that was abandoned. They left it. He changed his mind. He gave up on the idea. I say because he converted to Christianity. That's my view on that. And then it was left until as Abdul Malik finished the job. And of course, when the Jews saw Abdul Malik building things here, they would have been very excited. They would have been saying all sorts of wonderful things about him. They probably would have been comparing him to Cyrus the Great, who was a friend to the Jews. They would have been very ecstatic. And then at the end of, after building it all, he or maybe his successor puts these inscriptions up around the rock, which is really in the face of all the Jews who were going there to and ecstatic about what was happening. So it was a big slap in the face, really, from the Judaic or from the non-Messianic Judaic perspective. Let me move on.
Just so people know the dates that you're talking about. Hushiel, Ben Hushiel would be prior to 610. Umar would be 638. You also have Muawiyah, who also built a building on the Dome of the Rock in 661. And now we're looking at 692. The Dome of the Rock that we're looking at there in the picture would have been built in 691, 692. Just so everybody knows the dates that we're looking at. These are all in the 7th century.
That's right. So if you wanted the support of the Jews, you would have to do something there. But which Muawiyah did as well. Thank you for bringing him up too. But in the end, it was actually everything which was written on the inside there. When all these Arab-speaking Jews would have been praying, they would have been reading these messages in, I say, Judo-Arabic, which is what I say Lisan Arabi Mubin is. We'll get into that later. All right, then. So this is the first inscription which is relevant for us on the outer. The outside, well, it's the outer part of the inner ambulatory. As it's been gone through before with everybody, I'm not going to go over and repeat the idea that, yes, we've covered the idea that actually the word Muhammad refers to Jesus here. It's all about Jesus, 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 but it does have this point which is important. This is the key word here. This is what it says. By the way, this NW is northwest face. North face, so it says NW for northwest, N for north, it'll say S for south, etc. So this is the northwest face. This is the first thing which we've got to look at on the outside as you're going in, and it says that he did not itachida. You can correct my pronunciation if you like, because I don't speak Arabic. I know Judo-Arabic, so if you can correct my pronunciation, that would be great. No,
you're doing fine. Ittakhidha beget, basically.
Yeah. Well, the word actually we have here. If I'm going to click on it and open up the link here. So because beget would be lalid, like lam yalid wa lam yulid. He doesn't beget and he's not begotten, and the word is walid. So it would be a different verb. What we have here is it's quoting Surah 17 verse 111. Let me just and it's got taken I've also covered this in previous videos, so I won't go into it too much. But it's the idea of to take, to adopt, to take on, to assume. You can also to assume something, to select, to choose. So it's got this kind of meaning. It's saying very literally. I'll leave this here for the people to see it here. That lam, this is a negative particle. That's very important to note. Mm-hmm. There's a strong negative particle here. So he has not yatahid. He has not yatahid, taken, adopted, assumed, taken on.
So adoption is in view here, technically speaking.
That's right. Adoption is in view. He hasn't adopted a son. This is relevant to attacking the standard Judaic position, which most Jews will know until they get to the age of 40 and are allowed to start studying Jewish theology. It's actually a tradition in Judaism. You're not allowed to study deep Jewish matters until you get to the age of 40. It's until you get to the age of 40, your view on the Messiah would be that Solomon, David, Saul, any of the Jewish messiahs throughout history were adopted sons or adopted as a son of God. They're not really children of God. The children of God are the angels. is saying that no, he didn't adopt any of the messiahs as his son. That's basically the first attack against a Jewish position here. You know, the Judaic position has been spoken about, the Judo-Nazarenes. You've heard a lot about them being adoptionists, and they were fundamentally Jews. Remember that adoptionist position is a heresy for Christians. This is not a Christian position. Christians don't believe in adoptionism.
Right.
It was outlawed for many times, but the council, it was when they put the anathema on Nestorius, that was against adoptionism. So it's not a Christian position they're attacking here. What they're attacking here is the Judo-Nazarene position, which is just a reflection of the regular Jewish position. So that's the first attack there. So let's get back to it then. So we have this first attack on the Jewish position on the outside there from Surah 117. So, and then on the inside, on the inner ambulatory, these are the inscriptions which we see on the inside. So this is the south-facing wall. This is where the story starts, facing south. And it's basically saying, as you know, according to the system which I use to reverse or to reverse the Quran to a sort of Quranic state, and these passages are from the Quran. Well, actually, the Quran is probably based on these passages, to be honest. But anyway, that's the Islamic Quran is based on these passages. These are the original. This is the original Umayyad texts, the original Umayyad form. So we reverse this Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and we say that it means in the name of the Father, the Beloved, and all compassion, love. So the Father, of course, we know. The Beloved Son, we know, and compassion, love. God is love. This is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But it's not in a direct. This is not very in your face yet. This is actually quite like getting your foot in the door, because if you were to start with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, probably they wouldn't read any more. Jews would just stop at that point and say, right, we're not reading that. So by opening it up with a euphemistic way of referring to the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit, with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim instead, then you've got your foot in the door, and it's likely they're going to read on next. The next thing that they read here, saying, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God, Wahid, he's one.
Wahdahu,
and La, and no, Sharik lahu, there's no shirk with him. And it says, his is all the sovereignty and all the praise, and he quickens and he gives death. This is a quote from Deuteronomy 32:39. So you're starting to get your foot in the door immediately. This is the first wall you're looking at. The south wall is where it begins. You're not saying directly in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You're doing it euphemistically. So people are not turning their backs. Rahman and Rahim, these are words we use in Judaism to praise God. We use exactly the same words. This is completely intelligible Judeo-Arabic. This is Lisan Arabi Mubin for us. This is Leshon Arabi Mevin. This is how we say it in our pronunciation, which is different from Leshon Arabi, which is not Mevin. For us, it's Leshon Arabi, the language of Arabic, is not intelligible for Jews, for Judeo-Arabic speakers. But Leshon Arabi Mevin means the intelligible Arabic language, a form of Arabic which is intelligible for us. So this is exactly intelligible Arabic. This is why I always have much easier time with Quranic inscriptions and things like that than I do with speaking Arabic, because I can't speak Arabic. But I do understand all of this. This is very easy for me. So so what we've got here, though, you've basically got your foot in the door and you're quoting Deuteronomy. And that's great, you know. It's even the La ilaha illallah. It's there in Deuteronomy 32:39. If you want to check it out yourselves later, go and have a look. It's there, and it's basically a quotation. And then it says he has power over all things. And then it says, Mahmed Abdullah wa Rasuluhu. So it's saying, blessed, praised is his servant and angel. Allah's servant and angel. The Father's servant and angel is praised. Rasul, this is Roshel, basically, in Hebrew. It's not spelt the same way. It's spelt differently, but Roshel means the chief angel, the archangel, the head angel. So it's saying, blessed is his servant and angel. And the word servant also means sons as well. I'll prove that later from the Judaic perspective. So let's move on to that. So it's basically saying, praised is his servant and angel.
So you're taking Muhammad here not as a name, but you're taking it as invoking blessings, basically. Is that correct?
That's correct. Oh, I've also got to say that why choose this particular word, Mahmad? Because in this is actually also a Hebrew word. And in the Hebrew Bible, this word appears a few times as it is, but when it appears, it's usually in reference to the temple. So here you are, you're the Jew who's come to do pilgrimage to the most holy spot. This spot is what we call Mahmad. This spot is the Mahmad of Israel. This is the cherished thing of Israel, the temple. This is the cherished place. You're starting to read this inscription. It's quoting Deuteronomy. You say, oh, I know this passage. This is a very famous passage. We say this in prayers. And the first thing it says is after the quoting the passage from Deuteronomy, the first thing it says is Mahmad. That's what we understand is going to be this cherished spot, this cherished location, is not a cherished location. Mahmad is God's servant and Rasul, Roshel. So it's like, well, who is this servant and Roshel? But Mahmad is why I thought this place is the Mahmad of Israel. Who is this Mahmad then? What's this Mahmad they're talking about? What's this praised thing? If it's not this spot, and it's saying that the praised place, the praised thing of Israel is not a piece of rock. The praised thing of Israel is God's servant and Rasul. So this is the first message. It's completely Judaic perspective I'm giving you here. So you get it from a 7th century Judaic point of view. You have to understand that those 7th century Jews were expecting the Temple Mount to be rebuilt here. This is where it was supposed to happen. This was not what Nehemiah promised them, what Omar promised them before he converted. And here we have the building, and it's telling you right off the bat that, you know what? This piece of rock is not your Mahmad. It's not your cherished thing. Your cherished thing is God's servant and Roshel, Rasul.
Okay, just so I'm clear and just so everybody else is clear, because so far, every time we've looked at this verse, Mahmad Rasulallah, it is always, I've always been told, this is what Thomas has said, this is what Mel has said, this is what Murad has said, even last year he said this, that that's Muhammad would be, the praised one would be Jesus Christ. You're saying correct. This is not Jesus Christ. You're saying this is the temple itself. Is that what, are you saying this is what Jews would see when they read it? But was that the intention of Abd al-Malik when he wrote it?
Well, the language is very clear, Mevin. It's very clear for us. It says Mahmad is God's servant and God's Rasul, Roshel, chief angel, Mahmad. And that's a clash in your mind when you've been reading, for example, Ezekiel and various other, and Hosea, and you know that Mahmad is this spot. And so, well, this spot that I'm standing on is Mahmad, right? And they're saying, and this wall is telling you, the spot you're standing on is not Mahmad. Only God's servant and Roshel, Rasul, are Mahmad. So it's confronting you, and it's confronting your worldview. Do you understand?
I see.
Okay. So it's confronting the Jewish worldview that this rock, this Temple Mount, this is not God's Mahmad. God's Mahmad is his servant and his Roshel, his Rasul. And then it goes on to quote a passage from Surah 36, where it's asking them to greet the Nabi with Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, wa rahmatullah, and the mercy of God be upon him. So that's just basically a passage from Surah 33, 36. It's actually also going to be discussed later, but I'm not going to get into it now. The interesting word here is where it says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. So when, usually they translate that as saying, oh ye, plural you, alladhina amanu, those who believe.
Correct.
And yes, this is the key word which we have here is ayyuha. Ayyuha is a really important word because this word refers to a plurality of things, a multitude of things. There is a verse in the we'll get into it another time because it's a whole other discussion. So we'll move on from here. Surah 4 verse 171 begins. Ya al-Kitab, O people of the book, don't go to Taglud, don't be extreme
نتغلب.
فدينكم. Now, din, of course, in Arabic is what they think means religion, the religion of Islam. But for Judeo-Arabic, din means justice, laws, and judgment. So it's
Correct.
saying don't be extreme in your judgment. Don't be extreme in justice. So it's be lenient in your judgments. Don't cut off people's heads. Don't cut off people's hands. Don't stone people to death. Don't whip them. This is exactly what it means. It's quite ironic that by changing the meaning of one word, din, from justice into religion, suddenly you're allowed to do all that horrible stuff. And in fact, you're not allowed to believe spiritual things. So, but from the Judeo-Arabic point of view, this is saying, don't be extreme. Don't be fanatical. That's what it's actually saying. Don't be fanatic in your deen, in your justice, in the administration of justice. And it goes on and it says, and don't say concerning God anything other than al-haq, the truth. And here's the first word here. Enma means verily, truly, indeed. Yeah. Indeed, the Messiah Isa ibn Maryam, the Messiah Jesus, son of Maryam, Isa is just, by the way, Isus, without the Greek suffix. You take away us and you've got Isa. That's basically a transliteration there. So that's the Greek form without the us suffix. So the Messiah Jesus, son of Mary, and it says here, it was Rasul Allah, or as I'm saying, this is understood as Rosh El, the chief angel of God, God's chief angel, were Kalimat Mahu, and his word which he conveyed unto Maryam, and wa ruh minhu, and his spirit. So these three things here are again only really relevant for Jews, because we focus on the Old Testament, of course, the Tanakh, and in the Tanakh we've got what we call theophanies, when God comes and visits the people of Abraham and gives us help. Throughout the whole Bible, the whole story is about how the theophanies of God are coming to help us and guide us and take us out of bondage and various things like that. And it's got, the theophanies are in three forms, always in three forms. It either appears as the angel of the Lord, or the word of the Lord appeared, or the spirit of the Lord. So this prophet encounters the angel of the Lord, that prophet encounters the spirit of the Lord, or the word of the Lord comes to Abraham. So these three things are the ways that the theophanies, the appearances of God, appear throughout the Tanakh. So this is really relevant for Jews again. So it's saying that Jesus is these three things. It's saying that the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, is the angel of the Lord, the spirit of the Lord, and the word of the Lord, which appeared throughout the Old Testament. And it says, so believe in God and his Rusul and his archangels, Roshin, chief angels. These are people would have thought that in Judaism, these are three different archangels: the word of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, and the spirit of the Lord, the three different archangels. So it's this Rusul here doesn't refer to any other messengers. It only refers to these three. And it's saying, so believe in God and these three messengers, which are, and do not say wala, and do not say thalatha. Don't say three. Desist. And then it says that God is one God. So it's saying that these three are not three, these three are one. This is not a reference to the Trinity.
It's one person, is that what you're saying? It's referring to the same person? Okay.
It's saying that the word of God, the angel of the Lord, the word of the Lord, and the spirit of the Lord are not three different messengers. They are one. These Rusul, these plural, these messengers are one. And that is, of course, a mini Trinity. The idea of Jesus being God from God, light from light, true God from true God, therefore a kind of a Trinity in his own right, Trinity from Trinity. So this is a view which was very common in early Christianity. We've talked about it before on the channel, but it's not so common these days. We do refer to Jesus as the word, the way, the truth, and the life, the prophet, the priest, and the king. They're all like many little sort of triad phrases which you use to refer to him, and it's that he's basically a Trinity. It says don't call him three. I want you to point out to readers if they can see the difference between this rasm here, this little shape, all you have to do is know the shape. Look at the shape here. Look at the shape underneath. The shape underneath, yeah, this is this shape underneath. This is al-thaluth. This is thaluth. This is how you say Trinity in Arabic, and this is how you've always said Trinity in Arabic with the liturgies.
Right,
Arabic
and
liturgies.
the Arab Christians will say that for the Trinity, basically.
That's right, and it's in the ancient Arabic liturgies. It's always been used as the word for Trinity. It's curiously a word which is completely and entirely missing from the Abbasid Quran. It just doesn't exist. So every time we think it's attacking Thaluth, the Trinity, it's not attacking Trinity. It's attacking the idea of saying that these three are not one. If you're saying these three are three, then you're wrong. That's basically what it's saying.
So, Joe, again, just to clarify what I'm understanding from you, from a Jewish perspective, this is not an attack on a Trinity. It's actually an attack on a triad that the Jews have in mind concerning, let's say in this case, the theophany of God or things of that regard. So it's showing that actually it is Isa ibn Maryam who is the one that possessed these three persons, which is kind of like rubbing it in their face. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yes, it's saying that you're wrong if you think these three theophanies described in the Tanakh, if you think that they're three different people, you're wrong. These three are one. These three are Jesus. That's what it's saying.
Okay, so really,
and it's not.
This is what you're doing is completely changing in the way we've read this before, because we've always assumed this is an attack against the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. What you're saying is no, this is an attack from it's really an attack against Jews about their theophanies in the Old Testament, and that these theophanies are not. This is not Jesus now. These are the three theophanies who are archangels, really, and that they are one. But they are one what?
They are Jesus. So this is saying, you know what? They're saying this is what it's saying.
The person of Jesus, yeah.
It's saying that these three theophanies that you're familiar with, they're not three. Don't say three. They are one, and his name is Jesus, the Messiah. That's what it's saying. It's kind of really attacking a Judaic position here. You understand?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's almost like confirming now what the Bible would teach. Like, for instance, in 1 Samuel 3, it talks about Yahweh revealing himself in his word. That's one form of theophany. The angel of the Lord appearing to Hagar. That's another form of theophany. It's interesting, really. And, you know, for the first time, Joe, it's kind of like you look at it and say, okay, I can see why the Quran did not mention Thaluth, because it should have mentioned Thaluth. That's the common term for the Trinity among the Arab Christians in those days. So now you can look at it differently. I see.
Yeah. So it's really and you look at that verse, and then suddenly, rather than being like a disjointed collection thing, suddenly this is one very consistent message. Jesus is the theophanies of the Old Testament is Jesus. He is one, not three different theophanies, unrelated angels. Those angels are one. That's what it's saying for a start. And then it goes on and gets even better. Okay. So,
basically what you're saying is this is really confronting the Jewish notion of the archangels in the Old Testament. And it's saying, no, this is Jesus all the way through. All those theophanies that you see in your Tanakh, they are actually Jesus when he entered time and space before he came to Earth 1,000 years ago. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we have this. So we saw before. So the first thing it's saying is that, you know, this Temple Mount is not the Mahmed. The Rasul is the Mahmed, and here it's very clearly saying, and by the way, that Rasul is Jesus. So it's just going on the same theme. This is one theme in the mind, really trying to hammer home the idea that Jesus is these things, and then it goes on further. Then it gets bigger. You know, we've already seen it's already attacked the idea of adoptionist on the outside, which is not a very big problem. The very first thing on the outside wall, it's not a very big thing for many Jews, because they might think that that's attacking the Jewish position. This is on the outside before they get in, so they might feel comfortable to go inside when they see that. Then they go inside and they see this verse for Deuteronomy. They feel comfortable to read on. They haven't understood that Allah al-Rahman al-Rahim refers to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, so they're comfortable to read on. And it's then saying, you know what, this spot that you're standing on is not the cherished thing of Israel. The cherished thing of Israel is God's servant and Rasul, Roshel. And then it gives you this saying, do a blessing on the prophet. This could be understood as the Nabi could be understood as Moses and those who sit in Moses' seat. That's also, I wasn't going to go into it now because it's kind of off the point and you asked me to keep onto the track. But this is also making you feel comfortable as a Jew. The Nabi refers to the rabbinate, those who sit in the seat of Moses. And that's why it has a plural form.
Let's just keep back to the...
Let's keep on going. So then it makes you feel comfortable, and then you read on, and it says, don't be extreme in your justice, which many Jews would feel, yes, I wish they weren't so harsh on me. For example, I lost my brother who was stoned to death for adultery, and I wish they wouldn't be so harsh in their justice. So that's kind of also on the side, and you've got their attention, you've got your foot in the door. It's a great sales pitch, to be honest. And then suddenly it's saying, after it's got you feeling comfortable, suddenly it smashes this in your face. Jesus is the Messiah. Those theophanies that you're familiar with from the Old Testament, they are one person, and his name is Jesus. Don't call them three. They are one. So that's really a fascinating sort of first thing. Okay, so there you see the first few walls, one on the outside and the first three on the inside. Basically presenting, getting the Jewish visitors to this most holy site for Jews into a comfortable place, and then suddenly sort of whacking them in the face with the idea that these three theophanies are actually one person, and that he is called the Messiah and he's Jesus Christ. So that's the first step. There's more to come, but let's stop it at this point. There are going to be people who are going to say, hold on, this place is off limits to Jews these days. Yes, it is. There's a reason why. We'll get into that in the next part. But what do you think of it so far? Al-Fadi?
Well, I mean, Joe, you bring a very interesting view, obviously, and I think Jay mentioned this earlier, that all along, we've been at least, conditioned, maybe the word, or at least believe that it's an attack, these inscriptions, primarily an attack on Christian doctrine, especially the Trinity. But the perspective that you bring in is really intriguing, interesting, and it does also make sense. I mean, there isn't anything odd in it, if you wish. In fact, what caught my attention, the fact that, the absence of the term thaluth to describe the Trinity using the Arabic or the Christian Arab way of talking about the Trinity. Rather, it's talking about thalatha, which is the three theophanies that you're mentioning here. It does have a strong support for this view that you're bringing in. I mean, all that to say is that here again, we are looking at yet another possibility that still proves that either the origin of the Quran or the origin of Islam or the origin of some of these primary teachings that made its way into the pages of the Quran actually had a completely different meaning, and there has been an evolution in its interpretation and its reading. And of course, the lack of harakat, of course, diacritical markings and dottings add to the dilemma, at least the dilemma that our Muslim friends are going to face.
Exactly.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. Thank you also, Al-Fadi, for coming on board to help us out. I find it fascinating, Joe, that what you have done, you have brought in your Jewish background, you brought in your understanding of the Tanakh and the Old Testament, and you're looking and saying, and it's very clear, and that was good to hear what you're saying, that this building at this spot on this site, the Holy of Holies, this is the Temple Mount, this is a Jewish spot, therefore these inscriptions would only make sense if they're directed at Jews. Otherwise, they would have built this building nearer to the Church of the Sepulchre or somewhere in other parts of Jerusalem. But the fact that it's built here is because it is an attack by Abdul Malik. And who is Abdul Malik? As we have been saying, he was a Christian. He was a Monophysite Christian. And what's fascinating is if that is the case, and you're looking at it from the Jewish standpoint, making them comfortable as they come in from the northwest wall, then going to the southern wall where the word Muhammad, the praised one, is then introduced, reflecting what we see in Deuteronomy 32, and then going to the south Eastern Wall on the idea of no, don't go beyond your justice, and then really hammering them home in the Eastern Wall with this idea of the theophanies, the three archangels, who are really, these are Jesus. He is the pre-existent one. He is the one right through the Tanakh. Fascinating that you brought it from that standpoint. Now, that's not, those of you who are listening may not agree. You may not want to. You may not want to follow it that way. Nonetheless, we'd like to hear your responses. We'd like to hear your comments. See what Joe is doing, because he does come from a Jewish background. He sees it differently than the rest of us would see it. We do need to hear that side of it. We do need to also make sure that we not only pay attention to it, but ask ourselves, is this really the intent? Was this the reasoning? We've already said many times, don't look at these inscriptions, don't look at the coins, don't look at what's happening in the 7th century and impose a 9th century understanding onto it. Don't do that. That is what everybody does, and that's a difficulty where we have always started, haven't we, Al-Fadi? We start from the premise that you go to the 7th century, you look at the artifacts that are there, and you read them as they are, in the context that they are, in the environment that you find them, so that we can understand what the author is intending. That's proper exegesis. And you've done that here, Joe, from your perspective. You're saying, let's make sure that the author, in this case, Abd al-Malik, who is he confronting? I don't necessarily agree with everything you've said tonight. That's fine. I would suggest that there's still a political entity and there's also a theological confrontation going on. Both need to be taken into the context of what we're referring to. Nonetheless, let's see what the rest of you say. You've got the comments at the bottom. Do comment. Joe has promised that he is going to be looking at them and he will come back to you and he will respond. Okay, Al-Fadi, hundreds of miles away. And our good friend Joe down the bottom here, you're thousands of miles away. It's great to get together. Thanks for waking up at 5 in the morning. This is Jay, Joe, and Al-Fadi, over and out.